virtualscore.com website. This is just a simple overview. We're going to take a look at the matches and the supported scoreboards. So virtualscore.com supports the Laser Ammo Smokeless Range 2.0, particularly the add-ons, the competitive shooter, IPSC, and also the Steel Challenge. And the service can basically capture scores from those products. So any scores that you generate on the leaderboard, you can actually download a software capture application for Windows Desktop, and those scores can be then uploaded and obviously shown on the scoreboard, and then directly compared with other competitors around the world who've also captured their scores. So basically the website itself, whatever, if we go in sign in, you need to register to actually access the scoreboards and also to download the software. So basically if we then go and look at the match scoreboards, as I mentioned, this supports the Laser Ammo Smokeless Range 2.0, and you can obviously, I'll put a link in the description, you can check out those guys with what products they supply. And then we have the relevant scoreboards. Now if you already own the Smokeless Range 2.0, you might be aware of the fact that you can buy additional add-ons, such as the competitive shooter, which has the IPSC format, and also the Steel Challenge. And both these simulators allow you to use your laser designated pistol or sort of airsoft gun or air gun, and then basically you can obviously record scores against those formats. So we both currently support the two of those, the competitive shooter and the Steel Challenge. And here you can see that we can also download the score capture software that could run on your Windows desktop. So this basically runs alongside the Smokeless Range, and then just monitors the leaderboard scores that are actually recorded on that software, and then uses those to upload. We've got this currently in beta at the moment because we're still obviously developing new features, but it's still stable enough to download and use. Just obviously check out any news updates on virtualscore.com to find out when obviously we physically release this. Again, you have to register in order to do that, and you can do that fairly easily on the site. You just need to use your social profile, or you can set up an account. So basically, if we jump into the competitive shooter, I'm going to show you the scoreboards. So here's the scoreboard, how it looks. So you have in the top right hand corner, you've got the navigation. You can go back to the VirtualScore website. You've got the scoreboard, which we're on now. You've got the scorecard, the podium, and the practice. So the scoreboard is the area where all shooters' scores are compared. So basically all scores that are uploaded for the 24 hours are recorded here, and obviously that resets every 24 hours. So all these dates and scores are all recorded in UTC time. And you can see here you've got all the different courses that are supported on the add-on for competitive shooter. So you can obviously choose a different course, and you can see the information and stats regarding the shoots of that day. And then you've got the podium positions at the moment, so you can see a particular shooter here, obviously with the top score in gold position, followed with silver and bronze. You have top 20 shooter scores, so this shows you the positions of the top 20 shooters for today. 20 most recent shooter scores, so from left to right the most recent, and then obviously the trend line showing obviously how those fluctuate. An overall score range, so this distributes the scores into various ranges. So you can see here sort of where most of the scores are, and obviously sort of how that breaks down. Then we have the best score of the day, so you can see here position 1 with the best score, date, time, and the score itself. And then you have top 50 scores, obviously listed here. You can see the highlighted best score there, which is the score of the shooter logged in, and obviously the different positions, and that shows you 50 of those. And there's only 27 here because we've only captured 27 scores in this current match format. And you can see that here. So here's your captured scores, followed by the shooter identifier and the best score. Now the shooter identifier is a combination of the prefix is basically the initials which the shooter has entered. So here obviously we have this basically that any shooter initials for this particular identifier can obviously be recorded. So you can see here that we have the unique initials here for each shooter, but it's the same shooter ID, so they're basically like sharing the shooter ID, or it's a case where someone's multiply used the same shooter ID, which you can do, or you can have it singly where you can have one shooter ID and you only ever use the same initials, then obviously that will match. It just allows you to set up a shooter ID as perhaps a team, and then have multiple individuals within your team. Okay, so go to Scorecard. So Scorecard now will show you roughly the same sort of data, slightly different, where this only shows you scores for your shooter ID. So the shooter ID here is the same, and basically the initials obviously would be the unique individual shooting under that shooter ID. So again, as I sort of mentioned before, in a team scenario, you could have a team that have a shooter ID, but they have various shooters that operate under that ID. Same information, again, very similar. We have the information, obviously, like the scoreboard, but this case is only ever going to be the shooter that obviously is relevant to the person logged in. Next, you have the podium. So this shows you again for the particular software and range we're using. So again, Smokeless Ammo 2.0, competitive shooter. This shows you all the podiums finished places for the last 28 days. You also have the podium current position. So you can see here this shooter is currently holding first position, and you can see obviously that is recorded here in goal position. And obviously yesterday you can see the shooters that actually obtained those positions over the last 28 days. And then the practice session is essentially a case that on the download software you can use to capture your scores. You can put it into practice mode, which means that all the scores you capture under practice are only ever recorded on this view, and not actually shown or included within the scoreboard. So if you wanted to just run a practice session but you weren't interested in submitting your scores towards the daily match, then you can set the practice up in the score capture software, and it will record them here. It's a very similar format. You'd see the scores reflected in the same situation, and obviously but only recording the practice scores. It won't be mixed with anyone else's scores, just as the shooter that's actually operating, or the team in this case. So let's drop that to virtual score. Okay, so the shooter profile will give you an indication of your shooter identifier, which is auto-assigned when you create the account, and obviously your email, again read only because that's part of the association to your account. So whether you use social media or you register the account with an email address. So those two values obviously are set. You have shooter name, which is optional, which is basically provided as a way to actually show your username or a name you choose to use to actually have publicly shown on the scoreboard against your scores. And then you have initials. So this is an override. So basically, when you put the initials into the Smokeless Range, say the competitive shooter on the leaderboard, those initials can be overridden with a set of initials you can assign here. So every time you basically submit a score with your shooter identifier, if you set the initials here, it will override anything that you enter or don't enter on the leaderboard. So it obviously means that you don't have to enter initials each time. However, if you're running obviously the shooter identifier as a team and you want to obviously then allow the initials through, you would leave this blank. So basically, that's pretty much it for the actual overview of the virtualscore.com website. Obviously, sort of like we'll cover other options around the score capture in other videos, and I'll put a link to that in the top right hand corner of this video, so you can go and check that out. Anyway, thanks for watching.